the freak out is not going to end. Here's another freak out that I just have to like do a victory lap on. Kind of ties in pretty well.
Is this your recent mention on MSNBC?
Yeah, I finally made it back to MSNBC. I used to be allowed there as a guest, and I made it back, and nobody noticed because nobody watches MSNBC.
Jonathan, I have a question. As a Jew myself who is very involved with Reform Judaism and goes to synagogue and is committed to Judaism, is there space to criticize Netanyahu without criticizing the other Jews? Is there a space to, and I'm wondering if you can speak about that, because I think that's a real, I don't know necessarily that Netanyahu has the backing of many Israelis, because we see a lot of Israelis are maybe not so happy with some of how he operates. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that, because that's a real disconnect that a lot of us have.
So
that he basically could have written that question for her. She's just teeing it up for him. That's Molly Jong Fast, who's somehow become an MSNBC host. I didn't know she was a host.
Well, she's so charismatic, it makes sense.
All right.
So first of all, I'm definitely not an expert on Israeli politics. And I know that his approval numbers were quite low before and then immediately after October the 7th. Yeah. But from what I understand, Molly, they're quite high now. Israelis of both sides of the spectrum, people like Ehud Barak, who's certainly not a fan of Bibi, or Ehud Olmert, not a fan of Bibi, have said very clearly, and even the way he's doing the war in Gaza, said very clearly we needed to deal with Iran, and they're appreciating that. So I'm seeing that the Israeli public is very positive on this latest round, because Iran keeps saying Israel is a cancer, Israel is a tumor, we want to destroy it. Now, that being said, there is a lot of space to criticize policies of the Israeli government, the way they're prosecuting the war in Gaza, the way
he never gives any space to anyone to criticize the way they're prosecuting the war in Gaza. He never has.
Yeah, he spends his time making up lists of people who criticize the so-called war on Gaza, which by which he means genocide, try to get them canceled. And he lists anyone who protests the genocide in Gaza as anti-Semitic. That's what he spends his time doing. So his whole life is dedicated to removing any space at all for any criticism of Israel.
Correct.
This is push for judicial reform. Like, there's lots of ways to criticize the Israeli state and not to demonize Israelis. Yeah, to take on policies of the country without delegitimizing it or questioning its existence. So look, ADL does that. Lots of American Jews do that. But in this moment, what I'm focused on—
ADL does not do that. When has the ADL ever done that?
Really? Are how the fringes, like the woke right, the Tucker Carlsons, the Steve Bannons, the Candace Owens, and the sort of radical left, the Hassan Pikers, and people like Mehdi Hassan, unfortunately, Max Blumenthal, have been fomenting anti-Semitism, blaming this war on the Jews or the Zionists or the neocons. And I think that kind of classic anti-Semitism I find very troubling.
Jonathan.
So who's responsible for this war then? I mean, the neocons and the Zionists, you can't talk about that. So that he's drawing a line there.
And by the way, not all neocons are Jewish. So he's actually conflating neocons with Jews, even though there are many Jewish neocons. There's no denying that. I mean, this is a very, very long list. But it's like, is that our fault that the people advocating genocide, some of the worst war crimes ever been committed, do so in the name of the Jewish state? I mean, it's getting repetitive responding to these people, but what's significant here is, I mean, first of all, but that question from Molly Jong Fast is so ridiculous. Like, can you imagine? It's like asking, like, can we separate, criticizing Joe Biden from criticizing Christian people? It's like all of a sudden Benjamin Netanyahu is synonymous with every single Jewish person on earth. I can't believe that question was being asked, but I guess it's not surprising coming from her. And then who is he to be the arbiter of like what's permissible to debate or not? And like, he's setting the parameters for criticism of Israel when he spends all his time smearing critics of Israel as anti-Semites. But anyway, congratulations, Max, on being named.
Thank you.
I know you take issue with maybe some of the company that you keep there in his answer, but it's great to see you finally being recognized once again on MSNBC for all the great journalism you do.
Thank you. And thank you all who have supported the Grayzone morally or otherwise. You helped make this moment possible where the ADL has denounced me by name. I mean, he's really going after the Grayzone as a whole because we punch above our weight. We're forced to be reckoned with. We're producing real journalism, and it's shaking them. And, regardless of what I think of anyone else who is named there, the combined audience of those 6 figures named dwarfs that of MSNBC. And probably if you throw in like Jake Tapper's show, whose ratings are tanking, that as well. And that's the threat that they face. Like nobody knew that Jonathan Greenblatt did that until it was clipped out, including me. So we're in a way we're winning. We're winning the hearts and minds of Americans and people across the West and just anyone who speaks English who can access this, because what we're saying resonates with them. And it doesn't resonate on corporate media. I mean, just watch 20 minutes about Iran and see what they're saying. It's just bananas. It doesn't reflect how the American public feels. And then, so he's just coming in to label us anti-Semites. We're racists. We therefore have to be surveilled. The ADL has police powers. They've boasted about planting spies and Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace. They have a Silicon Valley division, which infests tech companies to push censorship on behalf of Israel. Jonathan Greenblatt, as we discussed before, we showed footage before, went to the Knesset and urged Israel to use the same know-how and ingenuity that it used to stage the pager attack in Lebanon, which former CIA Director Leon Panetta called a terrorist attack, to combat anti-Semitism. So he's doing everything short of violence to push for state repression and private repression of those people he named. He constantly mentions Hassan Piker, who got what I got when I came back from a trip with my family in Nicaragua to the U.S. He got a TREC, traveler recognition, by Customs and Border Patrol, and he was subjected border protection, and he was subjected to like an interrogation. So, I mean, that's what this is about. It's about literally policing us, trying to remove us, censor us, surveil us, and criminalize us. So while I see it as a badge of honor and, I'm taking a victory lap right now, this is a dangerous person. And like Bill Ackman and others, they don't believe in democracy. They can't exist. These Zionist enforcers cannot exist in a true community. They cannot exist in a city or a community that they cannot control. So I hope you get named next, Aaron. You got to do more. You got to step it up.
Yeah.
We got to get you on one of these lists. But this is really just about the Grayzone. It's not.
No, listen.
It was a symbolic strike on the Grayzone.
Well, listen, you've been sounding the alarm about the pathological nature of Israel for a very, very long time. And it's great to see one of Israel's biggest apologists recognize your work. It's a real honor. And how he gets to still go on television and portray himself as an expert against discrimination and bigotry when he's one of the biggest purveyors of bigotry is beyond me. But that's why nobody watches corporate media anymore, and people tune into independent media like ours. So, it's great to see.
Can I explain the B'nai B'rith ADL letter about not protesting Hitler in the Lenny Brenner documents book behind me? Yeah, that's right. There are 51 documents on Zionist collaboration with Nazi Germany. Very important book. And that was part of the negotiation over the Havara deal, the transfer agreement, where the Zionist movement under Ben-Gurion had negotiated with Nazi Germany to exchange Jewish bodies and property. And they, in order to ink that deal, they went to the U.S. to prominent rabbis like Stephen Wise in Ohio, whose synagogue, the current rabbi there, is constantly raging and incoherently denouncing Jewish anti-Zionists. They got them to basically instruct American Jews to stand down and cancel their boycott of Nazi Germany and Hitler following Hitler's seizure of power in 1933. I actually had forgotten there was an ADL letter in there, but basically the instructions came from the Zionist movement. And the ADL has just a scandalous history in the United States. Mark Ames wrote about this, how he was an activist in the Bay Area and would go to meetings about, protesting and organizing a boycott of apartheid South Africa. And he later found out those meetings were being spied on and surveilled by the Anti-Defamation League, which was working with South African intelligence, because apartheid South Africa was a key ally of Israel that had actually received nuclear technology from Israel. So this is all, we're still living through this nightmare, but they have less legitimacy than ever.